It's time for a Wellness Revolution. Brought to you by Hotze Health and Wellness Center. Honest discussion on maintaining health and wellness naturally to enjoy a better quality of life.
He's the doctor fighting to let you keep your doctor.
Now, Dr. Stephen Hotze.
Welcome to Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution. I'm Stacey Banfield here with Dr. Stephen Hotze, founder of the Hotze Health and Wellness Center. And as always, if you have not downloaded our podcast yet, it is so easy to do so. You can always go to hotzepodcast.com. That's Hotze podcast.com. We have got such a treat for you today. Dr. Sherry Rogers is on the program, and I'll let Dr. Hotze do the formal introduction. But boy, she is a prolific writer, incredibly inspirational, such a wealth of information with titles like Is Your Cardiologist Killing You? And Detoxify or Die. Wow, those are some pretty strong titles. So excited to have her on the program, Dr. Hotze.
So glad to have each one of you joining us today. We have Dr. Sherry Rogers. Dr. Rogers is a longtime friend of mine. I first heard her speak in 1989 or 1990 in San Antonio at the Pan American Allergy Society Conference. And she was talking about, at that time, Detoxify or Die. And she was talking about the environmental health syndrome that people have because of exposure to chemical toxicities. So Dr. Rogers is a board-certified physician in the American College of Allergy, Asthma, Immunology, board-certified in environmental medicine, and in the American College of Nutrition. She has been board-certified as well in the American Board of Family Practice. She's been in solo practice in environmental medicine for over 38 years in Syracuse, New York, where she sees patients from all over the world. She's written prolifically, I don't know, at least 20 books. Dr. Rogers, how many books have you written?
15. And
15.
30 years of the newsletter monthly.
Yeah. And marvelous. Dr. Rogers also writes a newsletter, but she's written tremendous books. How to Cure Diabetes, Is Your Cardiologist Killing You? The blood pressure hoax, the cholesterol hoax, the environmental syndrome, Detoxify or Die, No More Heartburn, Pain Gone in 6 weeks. How to Cure Diabetes, one after another. Great books which take an alternative and natural approach to curing problems for which most individuals end up seeing their conventional doctor and are prescribed a slew full of pharmaceutical drugs, which, as Dr. Rogers likes to say, make them sicker quicker. And that's really what happened. So she's taught all over the world. Hundreds and hundreds of courses have been published. So Dr. Rogers, thank you for joining us on the program today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and thank you all. I must first tell your listeners that I'm no smarter than any other doctor. I was just sicker and had over 24 conditions that are considered incurable today still. Got rid of all of them and ended up with 4 medical specialties as a result of it. And over the last, in fact, by the way, everything that I say is totally referenced either in our 15 books or in the 30 years of the monthly newsletter, which is still ongoing to 24 countries, because I'm a reference junkie, so we have the scientific backup for everything I say. So anyway, what happened was several years ago we had many calamities, and we ended up interviewing and evaluating over 30 cardiologists, and we quickly learned that they don't know anything. They have a practice guidelines that is basically 8 categories of drugs: diuretics, beta blockers, ACE inhibitors, blah, 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 calcium channel blockers, 4 procedures, ablation, stents, etc., and then they're done. They don't cure anything. And that happens to be the way the entire world of medicine is right now, which is what got us to start writing all these books, The Cholesterol Hoax and Is Your Cardiologist Killing You, for example, because in there we briefly go through the blood pressure, how you can actually cure your blood blood pressure, your cholesterol, your heart failure, atrial fibrillation, cardiomyopathy, what you have to do after you've had a stent or bypass to prevent yourself from dying, and the emergency medicines you should have at home, as well as the crystal ball tests. We have tests now that we know if people are going to be dead in 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years, but they're not done in medicine because there's no drug for them. They're only cured with nutrients. Probably some of the biggest mistakes that just drive me absolutely crazy are, number one, the statins for cholesterol, because they, with their chemistry, guarantee Alzheimer's, cancers, and other chronic diseases. And ablation, that's probably going to turn out to be, well, I think statins will turn out to be the biggest mistake we've made, even bigger than the hormone replacement for women that was forced down their throats for 50 years. But the ablation is permanent destruction of heart, nerve, and muscle with a laser beam or else thermo type of killing. And basically, when I do consults in 24 countries with our readers on the phone, one of the things I do, besides looking at 12 pages of their molecular biochemistry, vitamins, minerals, fatty acids, amino acids, organics, etc., how they got sick, what they have to do to get well, one of the things I also do is look at their last 3 years of records from all of their doctors. So I've had a phenomenal education because I get to see Harvard, Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, Johns Hopkins. I get to see the creme de la creme. Do you think I ever saw an ablation physician who did even a rudimentary RBC magnesium, much less RBC selenium, zinc, etc.? You can't cure diddly squat, much less atrial fibrillation or any other arrhythmia, without first looking at the very basic elements. And then they fail to look at the cell membrane of the nerve in the heart that is also damaged. And so they're, in fact, this week in the Journal of the American Medical Association, it cracks me up. Every single month they go after some kind of nutrient and try to trash it. And again, now this week, they're trying to trash omega-3, which, of course, people who recommend the fish oils are recommending often poor quality. But the biggest mistake they make is they think, a nutrient is like a drug. And so they try to use it as a solo act. And they forget that the anchor, phosphatidylcholine, the salt and pepper of the sandwich, the 8 forms of vitamin E, etc., are all crucial in restoring the electrophysiologic function of the heart. We've reversed so much atrial fibrillation, macular degeneration, high blood pressure, heart failure. It doesn't matter what the disease is called because we look for the cause and the cure. And it's so simple. Every doctor can do it, but it's not even being taught in our medical schools, which is why we had to go 15 books and 30 years of going newsletter.
Well, Dr. Rogers, that's a quick short overview of what you do and some of the conditions that you see that are mistreated by conventional medicine and how they could be treated safely using natural approaches to health. Let's just kind of go down a quick list of things. First, my philosophy here at the Hotze Health and Wellness Center is that every individual needs a doctor and a staff of professionals who can coach them onto a path of health and wellness naturally, who know how to do that and why they do that. So they don't use pharmaceutical drugs, because you can't get well on pharmaceutical drugs because they're toxins. We believe they're toxins. I know you believe the same thing. They are toxins. It's not that I just believe it. It's a fact. All pharmaceutical drugs are toxins. They have an LD50 lethal dose at which 50% of the people taking that dose will die. They have to be detoxified by the liver. Toxins, you only detoxify toxins, and toxins are drugs, and drugs are poisons because toxins are poisons. So, Dr. Rogers, you and I would agree on that fact, right? That all drugs are toxins.
Absolutely. That's how they work, by poisoning a particular pathway so that a symptom or a blood test looks better temporarily.
Right. Now, let me mention something to you, Sherry, and to my listening audience. Maybe you've heard me say this before, but when I graduated from medical school back in July 30th of 1976, my father had a banquet for me at the Houston Club downtown, and over dinner he turned to me. Now, listen to this, Dr. Rogers. He turns to me and goes, "Son," and I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Don't poison your patients like all the other doctors do."
Cool.
Now, that planted a seed that eventually, after 12 years, ultimately gave birth to the Hotze Health and Wellness Center. So what we believe is that the problem lies within the cell and the production of energy by the mitochondria, the power plants within your cells. And some cells have one, some cells have thousands, like your heart cell. And the mitochondria produce electrical energy from the nutrients you eat. So what you eat is very important. They rely on the hormones your body makes to activate that mitochondria, and that would, of course, be the thyroid hormone. It's the catalyst. It's the spark plug of the mitochondria. The vitamins and minerals also that help detoxify and are also used in the energy production. So your cells produce electrical energy, and I believe that everybody, in order to be healthy, you have to be a high energy producer. You have to have high voltage. You have to be a live wire. People that have brownouts, they have low voltage, they have brownouts in their system, and they have a host of health problems, everything from fatigue, difficulty with weight, inability to think and focus clearly. They have mood swings. They can't sleep. They got joint muscle aches and pain, sluggish bowels, bowel dysfunction, recurrent and chronic infections. They got diabetes. They got high blood pressure. You name it, they're sick. And they're sick because their body can't produce energy. And the reason it can't produce energy is the cells are being poisoned, first by all the toxins in the environment, and that would be all the petrochemicals in what we eat, drink, breathe, and slather on your body. Ladies, please don't slather that stuff on your body you buy at the grocery store. Get yourself some healthy natural oils, healthy natural products from nature rather than these petrochemical products. Why do you think they call it petroleum jelly? I wonder what that's made from. Petroleum jelly, Vaseline, petroleum jelly. So anyway, stay away from that. Also, it's the metals in the environment. The teeth, you got the mercury in your teeth. You're cooking in aluminum. You've
Fluoride.
You got fluoride, and you've got that in the water, which adversely affects the thyroid. And then you've got infections. And Dr. Rogers, I'm going to have you talk some about that, the heart disease and the infections like H. pylori and chlamydia, et cetera, and teeth infections and gum infections, which lead to coronary artery disease. And finally, the ingestion of high amounts of simple sugars and simple carbohydrates, which create inflammatory products. And the reason I'm laying this as a background, because Dr. Rogers, I would like you to explain the true cause of coronary artery disease. If we ask the average doctor, conventional doctor, what causes heart disease, if you ask the person on the street, you and I both know that 95% of the people would say cholesterol. That's the cause of heart disease. But we know that's not the case. Dr. Rogers, what is the cause of coronary artery disease? What causes it? What can be done to prevent it? What can be done to arrest it and reverse it?
The cause of it is the same as the cause for all disease. There are only two causes for all disease. One, the nutrient levels go down, and there are a gazillion reasons why they go down. We can go through the seven major, I call it the 7M because they all begin with M, the reasons that the nutrient levels go down, and the toxicity levels go up. And there's only one reason why people die. They run out of electrons. If I were suddenly dead in front of you, I'm the same mass of chemicals I was, the same toxins, but like you say, Stephen, the electricity stopped flowing. And we see also an amazing thing. I bought a phase contrast dark field microscope a few years ago because it showed me something very fascinating. If you take someone's, first I was interested in the coagulation because when you lose the electron coating around the red blood cells, they, instead of repelling one another, they attract one another, they clot, and you have clots and you're dead. What the fascinating thing is that you can take blood from the healthiest person and leave it under the microscope for 3 or 4 hours and come back. It is seething with bugs. They are all over the place. And many people, we've documented this in the newsletter as well several years back, because this is what takes us from ashes to ashes, from dust to dust, because these are in us all the time. And it's only when we lose our electric charge, when we lose enough electrons, that these bugs are able to come out and first cause cancer, etc., and then eventually kill us, and we die of blood clots. In the newsletter, by the way, we'll give any of your listeners, because they're so savvy, 20% discount on any of the books that we talk about today.
Tell us right now first, so people can write this down. How can people purchase your books? Tell us a website.
Go to 1-800-846-6687, 1-800-846-6687, or Prestige, Prestige, publishing.com, prestigepublishing.com. Because what we've shown in the newsletter in the last few years, we're trying to make acronyms to make learning easier, just like you've been doing all these years with all the great books you've read. In fact, I would love to do a whole show on your great book on the hypothyroidism, because we have taken it above and beyond there, but you have given it an enormous boost that will save many lives. Anyway, we have acronyms that we have tried to make so that learning is easier. And what I like to say is, when you're stuck with any diagnosis, it doesn't matter if it's high blood pressure, cholesterol, heart failure, AFib, cardiomegaly, whatever, cancers, diabetes, arthritis, we don't care what the title is, Alzheimer's, macular degen, we've reversed all of it. And so what we use first is the acronym THINK. THINK. T is for toxins, H is for hormones, which you gave a brilliant start with your hypothyroidism, health, and happiness book. I is for intestines, N is for nutrient deficiency, and K is for knowledge gaps, because without reading, people are absolutely clueless of all the wonderful, amazing things that we know about now that can improve the quality of life. I mean, we have nutrients in the newsletter in the last few years that make human brains 12 years younger in 3 months. We have tests that show if your brain, even if you feel wonderful and you sound great, if your brain is silently deteriorating already. We have a whole slew of crystal ball tests that'll show whether or not you are already in a clotting mode and you don't know it. And then, of course, we've gone into different ways to diagnose if you have a dangerous doctor. Because aside from all of these books on cardiovascular, which is the number one killer, and diabetes and pain-free in 6 weeks and so forth, look at any specialty, even the dentist. Just think about it. The dentist puts in an implant and expects this foreign body to stay in your mouth, and yet he never even checks an N-telo peptide, your RBC zinc, your essential fatty acids, eicosapentaenoic, docosahexaenoic. He's working absolutely blindly, just like all of medicine is. Look at any surgeon. Does he look at your I just ran into someone who died on the operating table from a simple shoulder procedure because when they operate on anybody, they are so egocentric. They do not even look at your nutrient levels to see what kind of patient, what kind of healing you're going to have. What got you sick in the first place that they have to do the surgery? In fact, many times when we have done phone consults with readers in 24 countries before they have surgery, a lot of times what we have ended up repairing and showing them that they were deficient in, they no longer even needed the surgery. So, I mean, there is so much going on in medicine that is utterly ignored because the drug industry pretty much owns the FDA, and that's you detailed that with Marcia Angel's book and your thyroid book.
Right.
It's so well documented, and we've documented it ad nauseum, so I won't belabor that point. But they also control our education, and that's why we lead the world in chronic disease. In other words, we have the most expensive, number one most expensive medical care on the planet Earth, but we are not number 1, 2, or 3 in health. We just went last year from number 37 to now number 43. 42 other countries have better health than we do. They live longer, and it's a heck of a lot cheaper. We lead the world in chronic disease because that's what sells drugs.
Well, let me amplify on that. When doctors make a diagnosis or a so-called diagnosis, which is really a pseudo-diagnosis. Now listen to me, listeners, and they say, you have high blood pressure, or you have diabetes, or you have coronary artery disease, or you have got kidney disorders, or you got degenerative arthritis, or you've got, early Alzheimer's, dementia, whatever. When they give you a diagnosis, you got a cardiac arrhythmia, that is not a diagnosis. They are simply taking a symptom and they're labeling it. High blood pressure is not a diagnosis. It's a symptom of an underlying problem. A diagnosis tells you what's causing the problem. The problem is high blood pressure. There's an underlying cause. There's a diagnosis to that. Commonly, tell me if you don't find this to be the case, commonly, I find it about 80% of our guests here at the Hotze Health and Wellness Center, when they come in with a diagnosis of high blood pressure, they're low in magnesium. And we do RBC magnesium levels, and they fall within the range. And Dr. Rogers, I happen to believe that the range that they use is probably underrates the true loss of or low levels of magnesium, because who's getting an RBC magnesium but sick people that have low magnesium? So it's automatically going to mean that their range is lower than somebody who has good magnesium levels. So I find that I push people, and even if it falls in the range, say it's at 4.5 or 5 or 5.5 or 6 even, if they've got symptoms of hypomagnesemia, and that can be, and the most common is ladies and gentlemen, if you got cramps, for crying out loud, until proven otherwise, you got low magnesium. If you got high blood pressure, to proven otherwise, you got low magnesium, maybe low potassium. But you can easily correct that. So if somebody comes in, if you go into a doctor's office and you have high blood pressure, the doctor says, well, you have high blood pressure, we're going to have to put you on medication. Oh, no, doctor. First, why do you think I have high blood pressure? I haven't had it before. The doctor should say this: look, we got a reading that was elevated. Let me have you, here's what I do. Take 3 deep breaths, blow out slowly over about 10 seconds, and let's just think down that blood pressure and get you down. 25% of people that have high blood pressure because they're nervous about being at the doctor's office. Go home and get a blood pressure cuff and monitor it at home. That's what I tell them to do. Monitor it at home. And in the meantime, we're going to get you on a good eating program. We're going to exercise. We're going to lose weight. And then, if worse comes to worse, you may have to be on blood pressure medication, but I never see it come to worse. And it is the rare person that I'll leave them on blood pressure medication. I can't get it down for some reason, but that's a rare case that I'll keep anybody. And it's always on it's never on beta blockers or not ACE inhibitors, but calcium channel blockers. But the long and the short is, when a doctor gives you a diagnosis, realize that it's not a diagnosis. It's a label of your symptom. And Dr. Rogers, I wrote a short little book here recently, and I have a chapter called Labelitis. And I say most physicians, conventional doctors, are afflicted by this disorder called labelitis. They want to put a label on everything that has a CPT code, and then they've got a drug to give for that CPT code, that label, rather than getting at the underlying cause of the problem. Tell me, is that correct?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I just had a birthday last month. And
happy birthday.
By the way, thanks. I have no symptoms, no medicines. I play tennis 5 days a week. I don't even have gray hair yet. And a lot of people think I'm 15, 20 years younger.
Dr. Rogers is a drop-dead gorgeous woman. First time I saw her, I said, everybody turned and said, who is that drop-dead gorgeous doctor up there on that stage? And then she started to speak and went, oh my gosh, she could be a movie star, and she's so bright and intelligent.
No. But the cool thing was I got all these great cards from readers of the newsletters and books saying, I'm 93, I just buried my last cardiologist. I'm 86, I just started a new business. I'm 87. They're all on no medicines and no symptoms. And that's the way we should be.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Now, you wanted to know the causes, and
well, let's go down. What about on blood pressure? Is that what you find, that many people are low in magnesium?
Oh, right. But also, when we do the 12-page assay of all of their vitamins, minerals, fatty acids, amino acids, organics, etc. In fact, in the book How to Cure Diabetes, it tells them how to order their own test if their doctor is unwilling or unknowledgeable. Usually the two go together. But what we find is most people's cell membranes, which of course are the computer program for the entire body, their cell membranes are literally starving. They're socked in with coconut oil, arachidonic acid from a lot of meats. Some of them are way overdoing the oleic acid, the olive oil, which now is contaminated. 80% of it, a lot of it is 80% canola oil, which is genetically modified.
Well, they've done what they've done. I hear that there's a huge fraud market in olive oil, that they put a little olive oil in and they mix a bunch of other oils in there to cut the cost.
That's terrible.
Tell me, we
just did an article on that in the newsletter coming up. But anyway, what we find is I like to use, again, little acronyms that help people. And these are the 7 M's, the 7 most common things that cause a lot of people's diseases. And you can name any disease, blood pressure, cholesterol, heart failure, whatever. The 7 M's are medications, mercury, Monsanto, mangled fats, mycotoxins, manufactured toxins, and managed care. And what we mean by that is, for example, in terms of medications, the FDA is so ridiculously out of tune with God's molecular biochemistry of the body that they not only have doctors prescribing Nexium, for example, which lowers your magnesium, which then causes high blood pressure, heart failure, etc., atrial fibrillation. But they've made it OTC, over the counter. You don't even need a prescription for it anymore. You can just poison yourself if you want. And then in terms of, with one example of mercury, the high fructose corn syrup, corn starch, corn sugar, corn flour, etc., the high fructose corn syrup has enough mercury in it because of the mercury chloralkali process from which it is made that's equivalent, for the average consumption, to be equivalent to 1 new mercury amalgam in your mouth every day of your life.
Wow.
And this damages a lot of chemistry.
I've never read anything about, I haven't read that at all. That's interesting. Go ahead. Then
it's all documented in the newsletter, Total Wellness.
Okay, I just haven't read that article. Next one's Monsanto.
Yeah, the third one is Monsanto, because the Roundup, the metabolite of Roundup, glyphosate, there's a huge literature, and we're going into it shortly in the newsletter, how it damages the ion receptors, as just one tiny example, so that you cannot absorb your magnesium, copper that you need for your cytochrome C oxidase, etc. All your minerals are messed up. The selenium that you have to convert your inactive form of thyroid, T4, to the active form, T3. And by the way, again, I have seen the records from the top endocrinologists all over the world in the top clinics. Do you think I ever saw one who looks at an RBC selenium? Not one. They are all working blindly. And then the mangled fats, the FDA has magically legalized lying to the public, because they said to food manufacturers who were crying to them, oh dear, everyone's against trans fats, but we can't get rid of them. And so the FDA said, well, no problem. What's the lowest amount portion of a food that you can have 500 milligrams of trans fats? And they say, well, 2 potato chips. Okay, now you can put on your label no trans fats if you're under 500 for whatever portion you design. So that's legalized lying, and there's a whole bunch of other examples.
What do you call that? Why do you call that mango fat?
Yeah.
Why do you call it?
Mycotoxins.
Why do you
One
call
of my
that? Why do you call
specialties
that? No, why do you call that mango fat?
mangled,
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 hydrogenated,
mangled fat.
distorted,
I got you.
bastardized, wrecked.
I got you. I got you.
Changed biochemically so that they are extremely damaging to the body. In fact, Harvard researchers showed years ago, decades ago, there's no safe level for trans fats.
Right.
Not a safe level anywhere. But the FDA magically decided that 500 could warrant a label on the front
That
of
says
the
you got
package.
no trans fats. Think about
Yep.
that, folks. It says no trans fats. Don't believe it. Okay. What
Don't
about
believe anything.
what about mycotoxins?
Well, many mycotoxins, the toxins that molds make, are more carcinogenic, cancer-causing, than many of the worst cancer-causing chemicals on the face of the planet. There are many ways that people get mycotoxins into their bodies, from example, from various meats and foods. The animals are fed moldy grains, etc. But worse than that, a lot of people are wearing toxic molds, fungi, yeast in their gut. For example, candida. There are
Sure.
over 12 different species of it. I own my own mycology lab. And the problem is that not only does that candida, for example, put out toxins, it puts out like one toxin called thiaminase that destroys vitamin B1 before you can absorb it. So now you can have Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome, where it mimics alcoholism and deterioration of the brain, and it's just because you're wearing a yeast in your gut.
Mm-hmm.
This is all documented in our newsletters in the last 5 years. And there are many other toxins associated with just this one example, because, for example, when the candida inflames the lining of the gut, then food and bacterial antigens cross into the bloodstream. The body tries to make antibodies to protect itself against these new antigens, and unfortunately, many of our cell antigenic receptors
Or
look
similar,
similar to these. So now you have autoimmune diseases, lupus, multiple sclerosis, etc. And the big problem is Hashimoto's encephalitis, because people think, oh, well, I have thyroid disease and my doctor's treating it. But they don't realize that without having him heal
Treat
the
the
leaky
gut.
gut, which we've gone into in the
Right.
newsletter in this year and next year, without healing the leaky gut, those antibodies that you make against your thyroid also attack the brain and deteriorate it.
Mm-mm. Okay, we said, what's the next one? Managed care.
We could
We
go
had
on.
go.
Any one of these
I know, but
all day.
I know
The
we
next
had.
one is
Let's just go over those again. We had the 7 M's: medication. These are the dangers. These cause most of the illnesses people.
medications, mercury, Monsanto, mangled fats, mycotoxins, and manufactured toxins. For example,
Yeah, the petrochemicals and all that. Go back when we talked about manufactured toxins. We're talking about the petrochemicals.
no, that's easy. Some of the more hidden ones that are even more, for example, look at this epidemic of thyroidism. Why is there so much? Well, we have over a dozen. One is the fluoride in PFOAs. What is that? Teflon, stain resistant cookware. It's in all of our food. It creates every cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, cholesterol, heart failure, atrial fib, etc.
You're talking about fluoride.
Yeah, the fluoride. There are 3 fluoride molecules in Teflon. And then the phthalates, the plasticizers that we wrote about in the best-selling book, Detoxify or Die. In fact, some medical schools and chiropractic schools and naturopathic are using it now. Detoxify or Die is the only way I know to get rid of the phthalates, get them out of the human body. And for example, it's one of the ways that we have reversed heart failure. As you know, when people are diagnosed with heart failure, it's worse than having cancer, because median survival for all cancer is 6 years. Median survival for
heart disease is
heart
5.
failure is 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that, for example, when there's a heat wave, you would never, well, some of the first people to die are the ones with heart failure. So you would never think of putting them in a sauna. But the far infrared sauna technology, which is also low in electromagnetic field, the one that we have chosen, in the book Detoxify or Die, at the Mayo Clinic, they put people with heart failure in
Right,
there.
and
Not
they did
only
well.
did they reverse it, they lost their medications and they improved their condition. This has never happened in the field of medicine. And when I see the consults from Mayo Clinic cardiologists with my readers, I never saw one that even mentioned a far infrared sauna. They don't even know what research went on in their
own
institution.
institution. I know that's
incredible.
It's just incredible. And it's sort of like, well, the people with arthritis. The book Pain Free in 6 Weeks shows people how to do the nightshade-free diet, etc., that many people, myself included, have reversed their arthritis with.
Now, the nightshade, listen, the nightshade diet. What are nightshades? Nightshades are plants. Let me give you some examples. Eggplant, potatoes, tomatoes. List some others, doctor.
Well, a lot of hidden things: lycopene, goji, lycium, modified food starch. People, like one Thanksgiving, folks came in and said, "My arthritis is back. I haven't had it for years since I've been on the diet. I don't know what happened." So I went to the grocery store. The turkeys were injected with modified food starch. It's potato starch. And we're going to see more arthritis now than we've ever seen before, unless people start reading Pain Free in 6 Weeks, because they're all doing gluten-free. And what do they substitute in the gluten-free products? Potato starch. The last segment of those 7 M's is managed care.
Right.
Are you there?
I'm here.
Okay.
Managed care, we know what that is. Managed care, these doctors are working for insurance companies. The insurance companies have physicians work that they hire, and the physicians work for major or leaders in major doctors' organizations who have at one time or another worked for the pharmaceutical companies or else had research grants from the pharmaceutical companies. About 87% of the doctors that write the clinical practice guidelines. Well, if they work for the pharmaceutical companies, guess what the practice guidelines inevitably are going to include? Pharmaceutical drugs. Will they include any natural approaches? Far and few between. Maybe they got a little, now they're on vitamin D, they kind of figure that out. But anyway, nothing else. And these physicians that if your doctor is an HMO or PPO doctor, your doctor must follow the exact practice guidelines that the insurance company enforces. If he doesn't or she doesn't, they will be removed and they will not make an income. They get a capitated fee. They get paid for every person by head per month that comes into that program. They've got to do what the insurance company says. If they listen to this podcast and go like, Dr. Rogers made a lot of sense and started reading some of her books and said, we're going to get rid of this. We're going to start treating with magnesium instead of beta blockers. And we're not going to give diuretics because it causes people to lose magnesium and raises their pressure. No, if they try that, they will be removed they'll be removed. They can't. Your doctor is a slave, and he is a slave to the insurance companies. That's how he makes his money. He cannot challenge them without losing his income. And if he better have a way to go out. Now, by the way, Dr. Rogers, I don't know whether you know this or not, but I've established a new entity called Hotze Elite Physicians that we're going to train doctors across the country that are currently doing insurance-based practice that know that they're losing everything. Their patients aren't getting well. They're getting their fees are being discounted, and they're getting slow paid, and they're spending all this time with people, only 5 or 7 minutes. They're spending all this time all day with 60 guests, and they're meeting themselves coming and going. We're going to train them in our medical protocols and our business protocols so they can transition out of insurance-based medicine to a cash-based medical practice. And when they get their patients healthy and well, as you found out, people will gladly compensate you for getting them well. My coach, I have a business coach, Sherry, and my business coach says, General, he calls me General. Whenever problems are solved, money exchanges hands. And so your guests, your patients, if you're a doctor listening to this and you're doing conventional medicine and want to get out of it, when you get your patients healthy and well, they will love you. They will pay you handsomely in cash for your services, and you'll have more time, more money, and more freedom to enjoy your life. That's what it's about. Help the patients get well, and guess what? Then you can get well, both mentally, emotionally, physically, and financially. You can get yourself well. That's what I've done, and that's what Dr. Rogers have done, and other doctors across the country who have opted out of Medicare, opted out of any insurance plans. I never did an HMO PPO, and I bet 10 to 1 you didn't either, did you, Doc?
No, I didn't. And the other bad thing about managed care, though, one of the worst things, is that whatever disease you have, then you are relegated to a particular specialist who knows nothing about the other specialties. For example, if you have Alzheimer's and you go to a neurologist, if he doesn't know the molecular biochemistry of the essential fatty acids, and I've never seen one who looks at it, then how is he going to cure your Alzheimer's? How's he going to reverse it? Likewise, if you have heart failure or high cholesterol or high blood pressure, cardiomyopathy, atrial fib, and you have a gut full of candida, then you're going to stay in an inflammatory mode for the rest of your life until he heals your gut. But guess what? The cardiologist doesn't know anything about healing the gut. He sends you to the gastroenterologist, and he doesn't know anything about candida.
He puts you on Nexium. He puts you on Nexium. He puts you on Nexium, which causes loss of magnesium. You get worse heart disease. Well, doctor, listen, we could go on. And for those of you that are listening, I know this has to spark your interest in learning more. One of the key things you need to do is increase your knowledge. You can learn more than your physician ever knew. You can learn more about a specific problem. There's tons of stuff on the internet you can go, but I would recommend that you get Dr. Sherry Rogers, Rogers book, and you can either call her phone number, 800-846-6687. That's 800-846-6687. Alternatively, might be the easiest thing to do, go to on the internet, Prestige, Prestige, publishing.com. Prestige Publishing. You can buy any one or all of her books, and you can sign up for her newsletter, which I have, and I highly recommend that you do that. You can educate yourself, and guess what? You'll have then more time, more money, and more freedom to enjoy your life, because you're not going to be spending all your money on co-pays, going to doctors, getting sicker quicker. You're going to be feeling healthy and well, and you're going to be running businesses in your 70s and in your 80s, and you're going to be enjoying life, your kids, grandkids, and great-grandkids. That's what we want for you, and the only way to do that is by doing natural approaches to health. You cannot poison yourself to good health, and that's the underlying premise that modern medicine has. They believe, and they don't even know they say this, they believe you can poison yourself to good health. Why do I say that? Because they give you toxins, they give you drugs. And I don't need a double-blind study anywhere to figure out you can't poison yourself to good health. That's just no way to do it. It's crazy. It just doesn't make any sense. Common sense tells you that. So you let those doctors and those people that want to believe that they can poison themselves to good health go on their merry way, and it won't be merry much longer, I'll assure you that. But for those of you that want health and wellness, learn about it, you can give us a call here at Hotze Health and Wellness Center.
Absolutely. I mean, if you have been struggling with chronic issues, there is a path, there is a way. You can call us at 281-698-8698 for a complimentary wellness consultation. Also, a copy of Dr. Hotze's book, Hypothyroidism, Health and Happiness, that we've been talking about during the program. That's 281-698-8698. We're so glad that you joined us here today at Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution.
Sherry Rogers, Dr. Sherry Rogers, thank you for joining us today, and thank you for the marvelous work that you've dedicated yourself to helping people learn how to get on a path of health and wellness naturally. Thank you for that. God bless you. You've helped me and through me thousands of patients.
Just aim to make people too smart to fail.
That's right.
God bless you, Dr. Rogers.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Rogers. God bless you all.
information provided on this radio program is neither intended nor implied to be a substitute for professional medical advice and is not intended to replace the services of a physician, nor does it constitute a doctor-patient relationship. You should not use information from this radio program to diagnose or treat a health problem or disease without consulting with a qualified healthcare provider. If you have or suspect you have an urgent medical problem, promptly contact a professional healthcare provider or call 911. Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution radio program advises you to always seek the advice of a physician or other qualified health provider prior to starting any new treatment or with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Any application of the recommendations from this radio program is at the listener's discretion.